Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find us on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you'll consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and professional writing needs. Momentarily, I will be joined by Michael Forman for a discussion on profitable communication with prospective clients. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits, as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at info@pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. Michael, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and glad to be here.
It is my pleasure. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Well, I'm Michael Forman. I'm a public speaker and podcast soon-to-be host. I really help professionals network and communicate effectively and efficiently, and therefore it brings up their bottom line.
Now, our topic was originally labeled by you, but it was too long, as Networking Unleashed, making communication with prospective clients more profitable. That would tend to imply that there is a connection between networking, marketing, and communication.
Absolutely.
Explain.
Well, the whole thing is let's say when you go to a networking event and you don't communicate properly, you don't network properly, then you're not going to get anything out of the event. If you network properly and communicate properly, if you meet with the people and you go through the motions, I wrote everything in a book, you go through the motions and you follow up correctly, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to create more profit in the next month than what you have now.
Michael, I apologize. I forgot to mention that you are a veteran and to thank you for your service.
My honor.
So now that I have done that, you say you have to network properly at events. I've had many career counseling clients who have come to me and they will say that they have been networking, constantly going to events, and they get over their shyness and they're communicating well, but the problem is these are networking events for job seekers. So they're meeting with other job seekers. Now, there is a possibility that job seeker Michael will help job seeker Bruce and tell him about a job he heard about. But the odds are it's not going to happen. So they're at the wrong type of networking events. How do you choose the proper networking event to attend?
Well, you have to really look into the networking event that you want to go to. So, I'm here in Georgia, okay? And there's a huge small business expo in Atlanta in December, okay? That's a business networking event, which I would advise going to, okay? So that's people trying to generate business for themselves, for others, listening to keynote speakers, breakout sessions, that's all understood. Now, if you're going to a job networking event, you're really not going to network with other people, but you may interact with the people who are giving the jobs. So what I'm saying to do with the networking doesn't exactly transfer, but it does. But most of what I'm saying, it will help them find that job or network more effectively.
What are the key mistakes that people make when communicating their unique selling proposition?
You know, I'm a firm believer that when you go to a networking event, and networking events are 3 and 4 hours long, but you know, it all depends on, all right, when you walk into an event and you see that the massive amount of people and you see different tables and you see people talking with one another, choose a table. Go up, introduce yourself. Okay. You have to have eye contact. You have to shake their hand firmly. You have to show them that you are there with a purpose. And the worst thing that people can do is start talking. So when you walk up to the table, listen to the conversation. Is it a conversation that you want to be a part of? No, this really isn't. This isn't business. It's somebody's babysitting somebody. Well, okay, so politely excuse yourself. You haven't said anything, so no harm, no foul. And go to the next table. There, you're going to do the same thing, introduce yourself. And when you finally get with that person or persons that you want to network with, shut up. Stop talking. Let the other person talk. Let them, because the more that people love to talk about themselves. Okay. So let them talk. And when you're in a networking event, remember, there's a mantra. If they know you, if they like you and trust you, they'll do business with you. So if you go in there, both barrels, and start talking, they're not going to hear you. They're not going to listen to you. They'll hear you. They won't listen to you. So when you walk up to them and you say, what do you do for a living? Oh, that's good. And remember this word, form, FORM, family, occupation, recreation, and a message that you can really get on the same level. Okay, so there's always something to talk about. And if you get onto their family or what they like to do, have them talk about it. You know, people love talking about their grandchildren. People love talking about their children. People love to talk about what they do for recreation. Find something that you can get onto the same level as them and talk about it. Now, notice I haven't said word one about business. That's the last thing that you want to do. People think the biggest mistake they think of is that they are going to walk to a networking event and come away with $100,000 worth of business. Okay, that's 100% wrong way of looking at it. You're there to build relationships, not clients, because the clients may be a one transaction deal, but a relationship you'll have for many years to come.
For me, I always tell people when they go to a networking event and they're having a conversation with someone, make sure to get their business card, and not, when the conversation is over, walk away, and then on the back of the business card, write down something that they said, because follow-up is key.
Is the key. Now you write down the date, the name of the event, and something that you spoke about. Because in 3 weeks, you're going to look at that card and say, I talked about this, but when was that event? So you write down those 3 things. And your follow-up, as you said, is almost more important than just meeting the person. Your follow-up is key. And the way that you follow up will determine whether or not you have them as a relationship or as a client.
The only thing I would disagree with is writing down on the card, I'm not really disagreeing, the name of the event and when it took place, because my rule is, depending, of course, on the hour when you get back to your computer, that day or within 24 hours, you should send the follow-up email.
Oh, right. When, as soon as you get home or back to the office, you should send that follow-up email. Okay. It's if you wait to the next day, that's too long. Okay. The whole thing is most people forget They just send an email and that's their follow-up. I suggest sending that email immediately, but then take out a thank you card, a handwritten thank you card. Write down almost the same thing you wrote in the email. Say, look, I saw you on such and such date at such and such an event. We spoke about your son, Johnny. He hurt his leg playing soccer. I'm sorry to hear that. I hope to get with you soon. Now, I didn't put in a date, a time, or what I want to talk to him about. It was just that thank you card for meeting him. Then, a few days later, about 3 days, if they haven't responded to you yet, you write, hey, I saw you on such date, such and such time at this event. I talked to you about your son, Johnny. How would you like to meet for a cup of coffee? I'm available Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. Is Tuesday better? So everything falls in line. And now you sent them one email, a follow-up thank you card, another email, all within 3 days.
And then the final initial follow-up. So you sent them the email same day, or if you get home at 11 o'clock at night and you're tired, you don't want to send an email. So that day or the next morning, you send the email, you send the handwritten thank you note, which should arrive. Technically, it should arrive the next day, but that's not up to you. So 2-3 days later, if at all possible, and it depends on the day of the week, I like to do the follow-up email on a Friday, because then you can say something about wishing you hope you have a great weekend. I look forward to speaking with you next week. It's as though Friday is the excuse for sending the email.
You can always send it that way and use that as an excuse. So you can time your emails appropriately. Okay. But now after those 3 emails, I would say 90% of the 80% of the time, you're going to get some sort of a response, positive or negative, some sort of response. Now, let's say they haven't responded to you. Your follow-up email should be, hey, I just want to know if you got my email. I'm looking to have a cup of coffee with you on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm free Tuesday. How's 2 o'clock? Okay, now if they still have not responded to you, they probably won't. Okay, so you take their information and you put it onto your newsletter email list and you put them on a drip campaign.
What about including a link to your calendar so that they can schedule an event, a meeting?
You can. That it's always, always, if you want to add that, it's always acceptable. Okay. I usually don't, only because I'm giving them that out to give me an email, give me a phone call, give me something before we meet. So I'm actually talking to them before we meet. That's all, but you can do that.
A lot of people who I meet with do everything we've discussed. Maybe not exactly, but for sake of argument, they do everything we've discussed, and they don't get a response. And they don't understand why. And I say, listen, I got to be honest with you. They may not have the time. Just because you're interested in them doesn't mean they're interested in you. Just because you like them doesn't mean that they like you. So it's hard to take no for an answer. But as you know, the best salespeople want to be turned down quickly so that they can move on to somebody who's going to say yes.
Well, almost, okay, because in sales, it really takes 8 touches, 8 forms of emails, thank you cards, whatever, before the person will respond. Okay, so you've handled the first half, the first three quarters of it. So you have to do those email touches. Just say, look, if you don't want me to contact you anymore, that's fine. Just let me know. Okay, but still, you can put them on your email list, whatever. I was in the mortgage industry about 15 years ago, and I was a sales manager. I had 15 loan officers under me. And everybody, all mortgage people were selling the same thing. The rates were all about the same. Customer service. That's the number one thing. But you have to do something to make yourself stand out. So now my guys were after these top tier realtors. They want to be one of their three mortgage people. I said, look, this is what I did. I put a shot glass in a little box and I sent it to the realtor with a card. I just said, look, just give me a shot. And she thought it was so funny that she had to contact me. Say, look, I have my mortgage people, but if one of them falters, I'll put you in. So it's just something for you to keep above and something that would make you stand out.
That was a great idea.
It worked.
It works. Silly sells. And
You
if it
you
puts a smile on a person's face, you're going to get positive results. I did it once. I was a fundraiser, and my problem was the population I was going after was elderly. For the most part, Depression era individuals who you cannot talk to about finances, because they would always say the banks could fail tomorrow. Who knew they were right? But at the time, all right,
right.
there was just no talking to them. So I sent out a simple one-page mailer, folded in thirds, and I wrote open, carefully, check and closed. They opened it up and there's a check mark. And I said, oh, you knew you were being conned. You knew that there was no real check. So you have nothing to complain about, but there are con artists out there. And then it was a pitch for planned giving. But from their perspective, not my perspective, the perspective of the nonprofit, it was estate planning. And I brought in lawyers and insurance agents and what have you. But my phone didn't stop ringing. People were saying, this was a great idea. I'm going to come. And we were sold out. We did it for 6 weeks, and every session was sold out. It was a huge success. And they all said that it was because the approach was so unique. Now,
Exactly. You did something to stand out from everybody else, which
which,
was a home run.
yeah, and of course, I didn't realize what I was doing. I thought I was
Yep.
just being smart aleck.
Right.
But I've seen people, I was on the board of the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, and we organized networking events. That was our main activity, of course. And there were people who would arrive, and it would always be the same. You'd hear the same pitch from everyone. And, you have 5 financial planners. They all say pretty much the exact same thing. They don't realize that what makes them unique is themselves. And they don't understand how to make a good impression. Now, you touched on it, eye contact, shutting up, firm handshake. I always think of the young man who came over, interrupted a friend and I who were having a conversation. And he just started his 90-second pitch. And when he was done, my friend said to him, oh, so you're in the credit card business, credit card processing business. He never said credit card processing. He was ashamed of that. And he was a tall guy. You could see him physically shrink, and then he just left. that's a good way to make a bad first impression.
Absolutely. And more people make a bad impression than a good impression. And really, when I go and I speak at a conference, if I do breakout sessions, things like that, that's one of the few of the things that I bring forth to the minds of the people who are attending. And I say, look, if you're a funny guy or a funny girl, then use humor. Keep it clean
Mhm.
and know your audience,
Mhm.
okay? But if everything falls in line, then use a little humor. If you're funny, be funny, okay? Because that's part of your makeup, your character. And people generally like somebody who's funnier.
Absolutely correct. And as you said, you just have to be careful.
Be careful, know your audience,
Yeah.
because even if there's just one person in the audience, then don't do it.
I had a job interview. I was going to say years, I could say decades ago, because I've been doing this now for 20 years. And all of a sudden, they just said, tell us a joke. Now, I was always a friend of the Tonight Show. And I don't know if you remember Buddy Hackett, but this is a joke he told. And I said, I can tell this joke. Okay, I can get it out. I won't get tongue tied. It'll work. And there's no way anybody can be offended. A duck goes into a pharmacy. The druggist goes over to him and asks, how can I help you? The duck says, I need chapstick. The druggist asks him, will that be cash or charge? The duck says, put it on my bill. Now, there are usually three reactions. One is that I should be taken out and shot for such a bad pun.
Right.
The second is, ooh, ah, ugh. And the third is people laugh. In this meeting with the selection committee, one woman took offense from her body language, and I just ignored her. At the end of the interview, one of the board members accompanied me out of the building, not because I was being escorted out for crimes against humanity, but rather because this was a building that was a labyrinth and the exit signs didn't help a bit. He's walking me out to my car, and I said to him, I got to ask you something. Was that woman offended by the joke? And he said, yeah, probably. I said, why? He looks at me and goes, she's crazy. Don't worry about it. Needless to say, I was not happy. I was not displeased that I did not get a job offer. It goes both ways. But speaking of the Tonight Show, I have one thing in common with the late Johnny Carson. He was exceedingly shy. A lot of people don't know this. He was a wallflower at an event. He found it difficult to go over and introduce himself to people. Now, you would think, why in the world would Johnny Carson have to introduce himself to somebody? Everybody would be going over to him, but apparently that's not the case, or wasn't the case. I'm the same way. I can get up and talk to 500 people. Not a problem. You put an EKG on me, I'll be flatlined. I don't get emotional. I don't get nervous. Sip of water, deep breath, I'm good to go. But to go over and to introduce myself to a stranger, I'd rather have root canal without anesthesia. Now, I'm good at it because I fake it. I pretend that I'm acting. Not that I'm acting like somebody else, but I'm acting like me. Because there's a danger if you start to think, well, I'm going to pretend that I'm John Wayne, you're going to start doing a John Wayne impersonation. That's not good. What is your advice to people like me who are shy and it's horrific to go over and introduce themselves to somebody?
Well, I've been asked this many times on many podcasts. Extroverts and introverts. And I'm an Air Force guy. I'm an old Air Force guy, so I use the terminology wingman. You need a wingman. So let's say that I'm an extrovert and you're an introvert. Okay. So I would say, okay, let's just go to a networking event. And when you're going up there and introducing yourself, have that person introduce you. Okay. That's getting that first part out. And then listening to the conversation. Say, oh, you know something? That's really good because my friend here happens to know a lot about that. What do you think about that? And you talk. Okay. So now this got you into the conversation without you having to move a muscle. You are now an active part of the conversation and people will ask you questions. Okay. You can do this for the entire night, but I would say 2 and 3 times, have that person with you and you'll see that you'll need that person less and less as many networking events that you go to. Now, I suggest that you put a networking on your calendar at least every other week. I suggest every week, but every other week. And by the 3rd time, maybe even the 4th time, you'll see that you won't need that wingman at all.
I had a rule. The first networking event I went to, I gave myself the goal, if you will. I had to have 10 business cards before I left. It took me 3 hours. Then it was 5 business cards. And then it was no longer a challenge. I could do it. I gained the confidence. There's another mistake that I see people make. They see that the person they're talking to, they've learned from them that they're interested in something, and this person has no interest at all in the topic, in the subject, but they still want to do business with the guy. They want to find something. So they start talking about it as if they know what they're talking about, and they're just shooting themselves in the foot.
Absolutely.
I met with an enophile, a wine expert, and he's talking about wine. I said, I got to tell you the truth. I don't know anything about wine. I don't like wine. I don't drink, but I have a question for you. As you can tell, I like books. And there was a time when I would collect books. And I learned that if you have a first edition that's in perfect condition, but you don't have the dust cover, it's not worth all that much, even if it's autographed. So my question for this gentleman was, when you are collecting wine, are you collecting the contents? I looked, I smiled, I said, is it the grape juice that's important? The bottle or the label? He was thrilled with the question. And it turned out it was the label, just as the desk cover, the label. And then we got into a conversation about labels and dust covers as works of art. Forget about the grapes. He knew I wouldn't understand if whatever he was saying about vineyards and wine growing. Is it just simple? You don't want to say, I'm sorry, I really don't know anything about the subject, because that can bring it to the conversation to an abrupt close. How do you recommend to people to keep a conversation going without making them sound foolish?
Well, as I said before, people love to talk about themselves. So let's use your scenario. Let's say that this is a wine dealer and he's talking about wine and you know nothing about wine. So you pick something that he said, something about a red wine, a white wine, whatever, and say, you know, unfortunately, I really don't know about the wine, but I'm very interested. Could you tell me a little bit more about this wine or about how you get the wine or the labels or anything like that? Have him talk about the product, have him talk about the wine or something, and you'll see that that will spark more conversation where you can introduce something that you know of, or just have him talk a little further. And then just say, look, I really don't know, but I'd love to talk to you about this more. Can I contact you? Can we discuss it further? And it's always, 99% of the time, absolutely give me a call.
Which means you want to have the conversation about anything but business.
That's correct. That's correct. Now, I told you the first half of when I walked up to a table, I never discussed business. The biggest thing is that you talk to that person and you say, you know something, I like what you're selling. And you told me all about it. How can I be the best referral source for you? How can I go out and sell your product for you? And they're so taken back by that they discuss a bit further, but they ask you for your business card, what do you do, and how can they help you?
Michael, I am going to share your contact information with our viewers. And for some reason that I don't understand, we do not appear. But in any case, everybody knows what we look like. My final question is if is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wish I had asked you? And if I had asked you, what would you have said?
No, I gave you the simple steps to networking efficiently. Okay. My only thing is that if you want to get involved with networking or increase your sales or your sales presence, number one, be present with every conversation, but you follow these easy steps, and you'll increase your network efficiently and effectively very soon. What you have to do is begin. Just start. Like anything else, just go out and start. Look, you're going to make mistakes. The first time out, you're going to make mistakes. The second time out, you're going to make it less mistakes. But you're doing it and you're meeting people, and you don't know who you're going to meet at the networking event. You'll be talking to somebody, you may hear a conversation next to you, and it's very interesting. Talk with them. So you can meet everybody. So that's a roundabout way of answering your question, but that's my answer.
That will bring us back. I'm sorry for the technical problem. That one hasn't happened before. But this has been very helpful. There are a lot of people who have trouble networking and communicating, and you've provided a clear and concise and therefore valuable tutorial on the topic. And on behalf of myself and all of the viewers, I thank you.
You're most welcome.
I'm Bruce Hurwitz. Thank you for watching. And as always, please stay focused on success.